soon as it starts going, it's recording. So this is actually, I get some of my best stuff right here.
Okay.
Okay, so we're live on that one. I got to just make sure we're connected. Waiting for the stream. Oh yes, it's working. You gotta love it. I was doing it the other day, and because we were doing it off a satellite, it didn't want to work.
Oh no.
It did not want to work. That was while I was in Walker's last week. I felt so bad, but I have no control over that. Are you guys nervous yet?
No, I feel pretty good, Fly.
You really?
You do lots of talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what? This is why I do this, just to make sure you guys are comfortable. I'm not going to do any of the talking. You guys are. I'm just holding down the fort. But we have to say hello to everybody. I'm really big on saying hello.
Yeah.
So do you know how I start off all my hellos?
How you start off all your hellos?
Yeah. How do I start off all my videos? Do you know how I do it?
I know you say, and we're back.
Not just like that. That's how I say it. But that's not. I don't do it that
right.
I don't do it that simple. How do I?
There's a lot more energy. There's a lot.
Like, how would I do it? How do you think I would do it?
I'm not sure I've had enough caffeine to.
I know. I don't think
that level.
I don't think I can try to recreate that.
Just try it one time.
You're going to use this, aren't you, Fly?
I promise.
This is the best stuff that you've been waiting for.
No,
I think you do something. You do something with your. I think you do this too, right?
There's definitely a hand motion.
And we're back, or something.
You guys heard it from her first, and we are back. I got her to do it live on Facebook for everybody that's
well done, Cam. Well done.
Yes, we are back and better than ever. I'm Fly Navarro coming at you live here in the No BS World Tour. I see everybody joining us in. Peter Chabanzai from the Bill Fish Foundation, Josh Wilkinson, BB Harrison's in the house, Dave all the way from Australia, Kelly Bond, what's going on? How are you? John Del Castillo, how are you as well, sir? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello to Fly and the gals, but the gals have names. Actually, BB even said, and we're back. She did. So
BB knows.
You can always count on BB.
BB was part of the No BS World Tour a couple weeks ago. So on that note, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves first and let everybody know who you are. I'm going to start off with Christina. Go for it.
All right, my name is Christina Wiegand, and I'm the social scientist at the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council, which manages fisheries in federal waters from North Carolina all the way down through the east coast of Florida. And we're going to be talking about best fishing practices today. And so I'm here because I was the lead working on the amendment that's instituting the new regulations. But before we get into that, I will let Cameron introduce herself.
All righty. Hi, everybody. My name is Cameron Rhodes, and I'm the Outreach Program Coordinator for the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council. So I'm responsible for lots of the outreach and communications. I run our social media channel. So if you've ever interacted with us on Facebook, I'm your girl. So we're just here today to talk about best fishing practices and some of these new requirements that are coming on the books, and, you know, trying to help you guys navigate what you'll need to do in order to be ready to go fishing for snapper grouper species in federal waters.
Man, that sounds like official.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds official. But I have to say hello to a couple of people because, number one, that's how I do things. But also, I want you to know a little bit of the reach that you're getting here. So I see my good friend Anif from the Maldives has joined us. Timmy Dean from the Great Barrier Reef from Australia. He says, good day, mate. He says, On the Edge airs July 1st on Cairns Professional Game Fish Association YouTube channel. Timmy, send it to me and I'll share it across everybody. Marty Bates, all the way from Cape Verde, is in the house. Dominic Lacombe Jr. from Stewart. It doesn't sound that awesome after you throw out Australia, Maldives, but Stuart's pretty awesome,
We
especially when
love
it's.
Stuart too.
Yeah, I was like, we spent some time in Stewart.
Yeah.
But you don't understand. Dominic is like the mayor of Stewart.
Oh yeah.
So if you have him on here, this is like the real deal. Jason Holland, what's going on? Jennifer Dudas, what's going on? Paul, how are you? Guys, just so you know, this is episode 1 of 2 that we're doing today as part of the No BS World Tour. We have one at 3, and then we got another one at 4:30. So we're because it's World Cup week, I'm interviewing World Cup winners from the past all week long. So today it's going to be but have you seen my stash? Oh my gosh. So are you girls old enough to know who Cheech and Chong is?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Dominic Lacombe Jr., he looks like Cheech Marion. He just grew a mustache out, and he looks just like Cheech Marion. It's crazy. It really is. His wife hates it. And Junior, just to let you know, I swung by your house and I saw your wife and your kids. Your kids have missed me. It's been 3 months since I've seen them. I learned every game that they have on their iPad now. They've all anything that they haven't shared with me over 3 months, they had the chance to climb all over Uncle Fly and share it with me. So that's a big deal. At least it's a big deal for me. They are 5 and 7. 5 and 7. I have no children of my own, but I'm Uncle Fly to the world.
You've got the right energy to spend time with kids.
A lot of different groups, so we can see that. All right, now let's talk. We're talking about something very specific today. Tarzan, my man. Have you guys checked out Tarzan on Instagram?
I have actually. I was watching the show with Cujo last night.
Yeah.
And I saw him come up as one of the features that you were shouting out. He sounds like a cool.
So he's 11 years old and he's a badass. I don't know who the bigger fan is. I really think I'm more of a fan of his, to be honest with you. I've gone fishing with this kid, and it's amazing. He just makes fish rain out of the sky. That's how good he is.
Well, that's good.
So it's pretty amazing. So July 15th, we're talking about just over 2 weeks from now, we have your new amendment coming out. And that's what we're going to be mainly talking about today. But I'm going to let you guys, and I don't know who wants to take the lead on this. So if you can let everybody know about this new amendment.
Yeah, so I guess first things first, our new amendment, what are the new regulations that we're talking about? And in terms of best fishing practices, there are 3 key regulations that are coming out of this amendment. The first is going to be related to descending devices. So starting July 15th, all vessels that are fishing for or possessing snapper grouper species in federal waters will be required to have a descending device on board. And this is for private recreational fishermen, charter for hire, and commercial fishermen across the board. If you're fishing for snapper grouper species, you need to have a descending device on board. And there's a specific definition that's written into the regulations, but the key things you need to know are that descending device needs to be readily available for use. So don't just have it still in the plastic, tucked under a bunch of stuff. It needs to be ready to go so that when you catch a fish you can release it. A 16-ounce weight.
Can I translate that to the fishermen? Remember our conversation earlier?
Absolutely.
I would
translate
like
that to the fishermen.
Guys, if you're fishing for snapper and grouper, you have to have a device to get them back down to the bottom, close at hand. All right? Ready to use. Okay, now go ahead.
Exactly.
I'm telling
ready
you,
to use.
I have to break it down as simple as possible.
The big thing we've been telling people is don't just have it sitting in the plastic. That's not readily available. It's also got to be attached to a 16-ounce weight. That's approximately what you would need to get the average snapper grouper back down to depth that was caught. Obviously, some of the larger species may need more weight than that. And it also needs to be attached to 60 feet of line. And that 60 feet of line was chosen because on most commercially available descending devices, that's the first value to get the fish down to. It's also more than 1 atmosphere's worth of pressure. And so it should be sufficient to get any fish down. Preferably you want to get that fish all the way down to where it was caught, but 60 feet will do it. So have it attached to 60 feet of line.
And I think before we dive into the other requirements and regulations, I think it's important to make it clear as to why would you even need to use a descending device? And so we're not suggesting, and the council's not suggesting, that you descend every fish that you catch. That's just not practical. It's really just for species that are exhibiting signs of barotrauma. And many of you
could you explain
know what barotrauma is?
Barotrauma is, please.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll hop into that. So barotrauma is much like what scuba divers experience if they get the bends. So when a fish is rapidly reeled up from depth, usually the gases in their body expand. And as a result, they end up getting all puffed up. So many fishermen will refer to them as floaters. And floaters are often these fish that are floating on the surface because they're all bloated. Their eyes might be popping out of their heads. Their scales might be bubbling. They might have their stomach protruding from their mouth. All of those are typical signs of barotrauma. And so it's key that fishermen are able to identify those signs of barotrauma. And when those fish are unable to get back down to the depth that they were caught, let's say it's a fish that's out of season, or it's a fish that's too small and you can't keep it, or you're just interested in practicing catch and release, then you likely need to use some kind of descending device in order to return that fish back to depth so that it has a higher chance of survival to swim away for you to catch another day.
Okay, so I have two questions that have popped up on the screen. First question, can they, actually, I'm throwing you both under the bus being that it's on there. Not you guys. Here, they want to know if they can tie me and the fish together and sink me down with the fish. So is that an option? Can I go down with
regulation?
Yeah, say there's no regulation preventing it. So
there you have it, Junior and JB. The chances, but I think you're going to need more than 16 ounces because this Cuban guy right here floats really well.
If they can do it, we'll allow it.
The other question. So the other question is, can they keep this redescending device next to their venting tool?
So the council,
when you have it out, can you have them together?
Yes. So the council talked quite a bit about venting, and this new regulation in no way prohibits venting. You're still allowed to vent a fish. You just also have to have the descending device on board. I will note one thing about venting is that studies have shown that it's not always done properly. And if it's done improperly, it can actually cause more damage to the fish than good. So if you're planning on continuing to vent fish, make sure you know how to properly do it. There are lots of resources out there. We've got some on our best fishing practices page, which Cameron can tell you a little bit more about, as well as some of the state agencies in our area have information on venting. But in general, descending devices are a much more foolproof way to descend a fish and prevent negative impacts from barotrauma. But if you're properly trained in how to vent a fish, you can still do that. Just make sure you also have the descending device on board.
So number one, you have a thank you to both of you for allowing me to be sent down to the bottom with the fish. And now I'm going to quote, these ladies are saints. We may need to ask them to communicate in Espanol. So, well, listen, you didn't realize this show right here, it's broadcast. I'm tied in with Telemundo. So we do this in 2 languages and sometimes sign language.
Very cool.
Hold on. I got to stop. I got a big shout out to Ayman. Hello from the Saudi Water Sport Federation. Ayman, how are you, sir? So good to see you. You ladies know that I helped put on the first ever international fishing tournament in Saudi Arabia. Well, Ayman is part of the Water Sports Federation. He is joining in Saudi Arabia watching the podcast today. So that's very, very nice. Ayman, this would be a good thing for you guys to look at as well, because they do a lot of deep jigging for coral trout, which are like groupers.
Mhm.
They're their versions of the groupers, some beautiful groupers. So big shout out to you. You guys are going worldwide. I mean,
Nice.
literally, you guys. Christina, are you in South Carolina as well?
I am. I live in South Carolina.
Okay, perfect. So listen, you guys are representing the 863 right now very well worldwide.
The 843.
The 843.
The 843, what did I say? 863? Yeah, close
Cricket
enough.
would be so ashamed, Fly. He's shaking his head somewhere. Loco Cricket.
Listen, I knew Cricket before he had a beard.
Beard.
And I also see McGrew Rice just joining in from Hawaii. He's our 4:30. McGrew, be ready for 4:30 my time in 1 hour. So 843. You're killing me. All right. So we've already talked about descending device. Could you give us some examples? Okay, BB, that's enough. That's enough out of you. She says, shake my head. 843. Okay. So anyway, give us some examples of descending devices.
Sure. So there are lots
Anyone?
of different descending devices that are available, not just commercially, but you can also make a descending device from gear you might already have in your tackle box. So some possible ways to do that are you can use a barbless hook that's appropriately weighted and has the correct amount of line, like Christina had described. So that's at minimum 16 ounces of weight. You can do more if you want to, but that's a lot of weight. And at minimum 60 feet of line, so that you can get that fish back down. So you can use a barbless hook that's weighted and has the right amount of line, and that can serve as a descending device. Some folks use containers. So you could use something like a milk crate that's weighted, and that can help release multiple fish. So if you're operating on a charter vessel or a headboat, that might be a suitable option for you if you come across lots of fish. And then there's some commercially marketed products as well. There are many, but some of the ones that we've been made aware of in recent years, there's the Captain Roy's Fish Saver. There's also the Shelton descending device, and there's a Sequelizer. And all of those are purchasable from some tackle shops. They're also available from their own websites. And we're hoping to see that as these regulations come down, that tackle shops will be able to actually have these descending devices in their inventory so people can easily access them.
Yeah, and to build off what Cameron said, the council really wrote the definition in a way that would allow fishermen to be innovative. They wanted to make sure that when they were requiring descending devices, that fishermen could do what works for them. And fishermen are known for being innovative and creative. And so they wrote the definition in a way that made sure, we've got these base requirements like readily available, 16 ounces of weight, 60 feet of line, but that there was enough room that fishermen can create their own descending device and make sure that they're doing what's going to work for them on their vessel.
Okay, I gotta stop. You, Cameron, I apologize, but I didn't realize you have a fan club. Did you? Now, are you familiar with John Brooks?
Yes, I know John.
He says he's heard you speak. He says he's seen you speak Spanish before, but you were drinking tequila.
John, way to blow up my spot. Woo. Yeah, that may have happened in Isla. That's where I met him.
I also see James Lagrone on here. He's like, yay, Cameron.
I know Maui. Hey, Maui, what's up?
And then listen, we got Louis McCarty on here. So sorry, Louis. She's drinking tequila. That's just, she likes tequila. So she, on my boat with James said you spoke Spanish without the tequila. Is that true?
I don't know. It may have been true. Who knows? I think we were listening to some really good music. James has really good taste in music, so that could have led to some Spanish speaking.
He also has good taste in hair products because he keeps his hair long, nice like a girl.
Yeah, he's got a
so
really nice
you guys probably were sharing some hair care products, knowing, or as we like to call them, Nika.
Oh, okay.
Nika. We call him Nika. Wally, what's going on? Wally's saying big weekend, he feels a 908. Wow. For those of you that don't know, the World Cup is this week. That's a nice one. He's fishing out of Ocean City. That would be awesome out of Ocean City.
Yeah.
And now we have Dominic Jr. He's also saying the Moana soundtrack. So that's a big deal. And Jody Lewis, how are you, Jody? And Dr. Abear, how are you, Deborah? Good to see you. Deborah, Dr. Abear, she's a badass doctor out of the Gulf Coast. She has Deborah, what size Hatteras do you have? It's called the doctor's orders. It's awesome.
I like that.
It's awesome.
Well played, Deborah.
So, hey, James, it's not meatball, it's the ravioli for Dominic. And, look, and James's dad is on here too. Hey, John, get some control over your son. Calm him down. Listen, this is a family show. We have a good time. We talk about fishing. Did you call my son a girl and Nika? Absolutely, I did, Johnny. Absolutely. Why do you think we call him Nika? Because he has long hair like a girl. These are the things. These are the things that once you have audience participation. Love you too, Deborah. Are you fishing this weekend? Paulie, are you fishing this weekend out of New Jersey? I believe Paulie's going to try to fish the World Cup out of New Jersey. So, hey, Fly, your chair is starting to squeak again. That's why I have Lucas Gun Oil here to keep my chair quiet. Okay, and we move on. So I told you this, we start going off in little tangents. Vanessa, Mama's waiting for me. Why? Because I called her son a girl, or because I haven't seen her in 2 years, John. Vanessa knows that I called Jamie a girl. That's been a long time coming. So when James first came to the States, he'd come to my house to watch football on Sundays, and you would have to, oh my gosh, your screen froze just as you were shooting somebody the bird. What was that all about, Christina? Who did you shoot the bird to? I told you this is a family show.
I was just adjusting my glasses, but I can't.
It froze like.
You let me know.
Right here. You can't do that. You can't do that. I told you this again. You're gonna have a good time. We're gonna talk. You know what? I have somebody that commented something, and I want to kind of circle it around with you ladies because I believe the amendment was already passed. So Corey watches the show out of Oregon. And if I'm correct, you guys already passed this. Now, not the Southeastern Atlantic Council. I believe it was the Northwestern Council. They passed a redescending device amendment, or it might have been Alaska. I'm not sure, for the lingcod and the rockfish. I see a nod, but I don't hear anything. Did I lose sound?
No, there are some regulations out on the West Coast that are similar to what we've done at the South Atlantic Council. I'm not sure if they have any formal regulations in place for like the Pacific Council, so in federal waters, but I know Oregon has requirements for descending device use. The state of Washington has requirements for descending device use, and a lot of their research and outreach work and the way they wrote their regulations, we used a lot of that in sort of crafting what we wanted to do here at the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council.
Can you say that fast 3 different times? One thing I've learned about doing anything with the federal government, you guys have so many acronyms, and which number one is a big word for this guy. Acronym is a very big word. But you guys have acronyms for everything. I think I was on the HMS advisory panel for 2 years before I realized LEO means law enforcement office. I had no clue. I just sat there with a smile on my face, like, yeah, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So there's a lot of acronyms.
Tell us to specify if we're just throwing them out.
No, I will. I just you said the whole thing. The Southeastern Atlantic Management Fishery Council, and I was like, wow, that is so awesome.
It's South Atlantic Fishery Management Council. No Southeastern, just South Atlantic.
South Atlantic. All right, and for those of you that are joining late, I'm being joined by Christina and Cameron from the South Atlantic Management Fishery Council. We're talking about descending, whatever. Give me the acronym so I can say it out loud.
Just go with South Atlantic Council.
That's
South Atlantic Council. Perfect.
That's the best.
There we go.
That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're talking about, and we're talking about redescending devices. So that's what we're talking about. And then BB jumped in with her 2 cents and says some great descending devices work and best fishing practices in Oregon. So Oregon is kind of leading the way here, I see. Corey, thank you for bringing that up, buddy. I hear a little crackle. I don't know if it's mine or your guys. I think it might be mine. Coach Cherry is in the house. That's my high school football coach. So I always gotta give him props, because even almost at 50 years old, I'm worried he's going to tell me to go outside and run. So I always want to give him a shout out. I'm traumatized, you know. It goes back. It was 30 years ago, and at any moment he could say, Navarro, go outside and give me a mile. So thank you, Johnny. Good to see you. Hold on a second. McGrew Rice, who I'm interviewing at 4:30 for the World Cup, he's a council member for the Westpac Council.
Awesome.
So again, I don't know what Westpac means, but I'm good with it. We don't have to go into, because I know the acronyms. The acronyms are tough. We've already discussed Western Pacific. That's it. Council.
Yeah, Western Pacific Fishery Management Council.
No, let's stick with Westpac.
Yeah.
Just like you said, South Atlantic Council. I'll leave it at that.
Yes, there you go.
South Atlantic Council. It'll make me look better, not necessarily good, but better, because I'll mess it up. I know I'm gonna mess it up. That's just the way I roll. So okay, let's spin off just a little bit and talk about some of the other things you guys do in the South Atlantic Council. See how I did that? I just wanted to. If I do it 3 times, then I'm good.
Then it's done.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else do you guys do with the South Atlantic Council?
So we cover lots of different fisheries.
Bueller, anybody?
I think there must be a delay because I feel like I'm answering. So there's a lot that we manage in the South Atlantic jurisdiction. And in some cases, we extend all the way up with management measures through to Maine. So for example, dolphin and wahoo are managed across the entire Atlantic coast of the United States, and that's under the South Atlantic Council's jurisdiction. So anybody who fishes for dolphin and wahoo as a charter vessel or a headboat operator is fishing under what's essentially a South Atlantic issued permit. So we do things like dolphin wahoo, We do mackerel species like king mackerel, Spanish mackerel. We also manage some portions of cobia, and Christina is actually the staff lead for our coastal migratory pelagics, which includes the mackerels and the cobia. And then we manage
mackerel questions. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, Christina's the go-to for mackerel stuff,
first.
without a doubt. And mackerel is complicated, and she's got it down. She's definitely a great contact to have for that stuff. And then we also manage lots of snapper grouper species, and we manage things like sargassum and shrimp, coral. So it's a large swath of water with many different species that the council is responsible for managing. And the council is really an advisory body by nature. So it's constructed of NOAA fisheries officials, as well as state agency representatives and fishermen representing commercial fisheries as well as recreational fisheries. And so that group of people meets on a quarterly basis, and they discuss management issues and propose management measures, which then get funneled up through the system to NOAA Fisheries and the Secretary of Commerce for them to eventually consider for implementation and to make it actually a law. And through this process, there's lots of engagement with the public, lots of opportunity for folks to participate, to offer their public comment, to direct different kinds of management measures and provide their feedback. And it's exciting to be part of that process. I think that's the best part of our job, is that we actually get to interact with fishermen. And sometimes things get contentious. That's just the nature of fisheries. It can be tough. You're dealing with people's livelihoods. But ultimately, that I think is the most rewarding part of this job, is that we get to interact with people on an in-person basis and discuss the fisheries needs that they have in their communities. It's a fun job.
Yeah.
So if any, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I just wanted to second what Cameron had said. The beauty of how the Fishery Management Council process has been set up, not just for us in the South Atlantic, but all 8 of the regional councils, is that the backbone of it is really public involvement, from opportunities to make public comment to having, for the South Atlantic, we have species specific advisory panels that fishermen and dealers, wholesalers, nonprofits, anyone who has any bit of stake in the fishery participates in. And so all that information from the water, everything that you guys are actively experiencing, then gets funneled up to the council to help them to make the decisions that they then recommend to NIMS. And so it allows us to really make sure we're getting information from the ground floor, from the people that are out there actively fishing, which is, I can't emphasize enough what an important part of the process that is. And I always want to encourage people, if you're someone listening to this podcast right now who fishes in the South Atlantic, apply for one of our advisory panel seats. Make sure you've got an opportunity to get your voice heard. It makes a big difference on all the decisions that are made.
And anybody that has questions, you can see I have their cell numbers right up underneath them. Just call them personally on their cell number, and they'll be waiting for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Holidays, doesn't matter.
It's not completely inaccurate.
We're pretty easy to access with a quick phone call or an email, and our information is all over the council's website. Fly, you've got our information, so you can always pass that on too. And another easy way to access us is to find the South Atlantic Council on Facebook and shoot us a message, and we'll be happy to follow up with you and answer questions. And we're prepared to answer tough questions too. So if you have some things that you really have deep burning questions about, don't hesitate to reach out to us. That's what we're here for.
We want to have the tough conversations. It's a
yeah.
part of the management process. Management would be all fun and games if it weren't for these sort of hard conversations that you have to have. So
I'm gonna repeat 2 comments, or I'm gonna mention 2 comments. Number 1 from McGrew Rice. What she said is right on. He's part of the Westpac Council. The other one is Bouncer Smith. I don't know if you guys know Bouncer Smith.
Yeah, we know Bouncer.
He's a legend. So Bouncer says, fishermen beware. If you don't stay involved, you can't complain about the rules. Please stay involved.
That's the best message. Thank you, Bouncer.
Get involved. There are so many opportunities to get involved.
And Bouncer, congratulations on your
unbelievable. Did you see my podcast with Bouncer?
I didn't see the podcast, but I saw all of the celebrations for his retirement, and it was really beautiful. So congratulations on an incredible career.
I was able to interview Bouncer, I think 3 days before his retirement. And it was awesome. When I start traveling again, I may just present him with the No BS World Tour and let him cover it while I'm not at home. Because here's one thing I did not know. So I call this the No BS World Tour. He has it, the BS, Bouncer Smith. So we're covered. We're covered. This is like it's like cross marketing.
Yeah, it's branding right there. You're good to go.
Oh my gosh. Exactly. So, but yes, fishermen get involved. I know me personally, I've been involved with HMS now 5 years, going on 6. And actually, I just got a call on Saturday that ICAT nominations are coming up, and they've been trying to get me on ICAT for a while. So
good fit for ICAT. You should definitely pursue that.
So my biggest thing is making time. I don't mind doing it if I know the dates. I can schedule everything in its own little piece. So, but yeah, anything I can do to give back to my community. I've made a really good living off of fishing. So now I want to give back to the rules, regulations, let people know, be the mouthpiece kind of a thing. So that, to me, that's a very important thing.
Well, good.
What about you guys? What else did we miss? Did we miss anything?
Oh, we could talk about it all day.
There are a couple of other regulations. You want to talk about circle hooks?
Bring them on. We're here. That's what we're here for.
In addition to descending device regulations, now we've got some new circle hook regulations. 2 of them. Well, 2 hook regulations. The first one, now circle hooks are required to be non-stainless steel, non-offset. That's the key change here. Non-offset circle hooks are required to be used when fishing with hook and line gear and with natural baits when you're north of 28 degrees north latitude, which is it's just a little bit south of Cape Canaveral. And so if you're fishing for snapper grouper north of that, you're going to need to be using non-offset circle hooks now. Circle hooks have been required in that area for a long time, but the main change here is that non-offset part. And then the whole South Atlantic, your hook should be non-stainless steel.
Thank you very much for clarifying exactly where that line is for the people that if they're not familiar with Latin long, it's a big deal. It really is. So
it's just 20 miles south of Cape Canaveral. Okay.
You're like a pirate too. You know all your sailing terms and everything. all the traveling. Listen, you got to be careful. I'm notorious for giving people nicknames, so you got to be careful.
Stick. Yeah,
pirate may stick.
Pirate. I actually am in the process of getting my degree from East Carolina University, which is the Pirates. So if it
well, there you go. Then you're happy about it. Okay, I have another question. Ask them about how important best available science is.
And I guess I would follow that up with a question asking just like what you mean by how important it is. I mean, best available science is kind of pushed around as a typical term that folks have grabbed onto, and it's an important one. And really the management process is required to follow anything that comes out as a result of best available science. So any kind of recommendation as far as catch levels go for a species, all of that has to be determined based on best available science. And much of that falls outside of the council. It really falls into scientific advisors, the Southeast Fisheries Science Center, NOAA Fisheries, and whatever they see as best available science is then used by the councils in order to propose management measures. So it's very important. It's also, I think, for many fishermen, a confusing subject and a challenging one, simply because best available science doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% precise and it's a 100% accurate reflection of what you're seeing on the water. But best available science is really truly that it's the best available data streams for managers to use whenever making management decisions down the road. So it's certainly not a satisfactory answer that I've probably just provided, but it's an honest one. And that it's what the councils and managers have to use in order to make management decisions.
And I would, to sort of add on to what Cameron's saying, in terms of, you guys or us as fishermen, the importance of best available science, which is, sort of a regulatory term in nature, but information is important. And so as fishermen, when you have the opportunity to provide information, be that because a dockside sampler is stopping you, asking you about your catch, or you're getting phone calls or different surveys, or you're filling out your catch in these apps. I know you had BB on a while ago talking about my fish count. If you as fishermen can provide that information, that goes a long way. And I know it can feel, like Cameron said, frustrating when it feels like we're providing this information and is it not being used? It takes time to go through this sort of best available science process, but it is important, and it is something that especially council members consider, and not to keep harping on and roping it back to get involved in the process, but get involved in the process, provide the information you have, because it goes a long way in management decisions. So I would say the importance of best scientific information available is fishermen get involved. We want the best scientific information available. And if you're out there fishing, then you have that information. So provide it where you can.
They said good answer on that. You answered it good. That was a good answer. Now Bouncer Smith has just joined in as well. And he says, hey, ladies and fly, we need to stop fishermen from cutting leaders more than 3 feet from sailfish hooks, and refrain from fishing so many lines that fish cut each other off. The best science shows sailfish with lines reaching their tails die. We need a tagging study to prove this.
So I think that's a great comment. I don't know much about that stuff since we don't manage highly migratory species, which include billfish, tunas, and sharks. So our management body is not responsible for proposing management measures for those species. However, other agencies that we often work closely with are responsible for that. And so that's information that we can anecdotally share with folks over at HMS. We communicate with them rather frequently, but I'd strongly encourage Bouncer, if you haven't already, to send that in an email to folks over at HMS. And Fly, you probably have a good contact for someone he should send that to. But the highly migratory species division is the right one. They have the authority to actually make changes relative to that, whereas our council does not have management jurisdiction for those species.
Best we can do is write a letter and recommend.
Write a letter and recommend it?
That's the best our council can do, since we don't manage those species.
Right.
Okay. I need to give a big shout out and a call out to Susan Dalton. She says, hey, Fly, but she said, hi, Cameron Rhodes first. So
me and Susan are buddies. Yeah, she's
tight.
The best.
You're
We're
tight.
basically sisters. Yeah. She's a good one.
Well, it's the best part was when I interviewed her sister.
Yeah.
She was in the other room. She was in the other room, calling and laughing. So that was the best part.
That sounds like Susan. Yeah, that sounds like her.
Okay, and let me come back over to this window right here so I can read this perfectly. We need to readdress mutton snapper rules. 17-inch mutton snappers, sequelized, still die. They just aren't tough enough to survive.
Yeah, we've heard that for a couple of species, and there certainly seems to be a range with how species respond to recompression tools like descending devices. And they're really, what it boils down to is fisherman input, like what you just provided there, that's hugely helpful. And getting that on the public record is critical, so that the council can actually eventually take that information that folks like you provide relative to survivorship of fish and then try and channel that into a management decision down the road. But there's also a great need for additional studies on this stuff. And the council's not actively involved in research, but many of the state agencies are. And so that would be an interesting thing to propose to a university in your area. If you're worried about mutton, I'm assuming you're probably in Florida. But
that's Bouncer. So it's
that's
University
Bouncer.
of
Okay.
Yeah, University
Yeah.
of Miami.
Yeah, it would be good to reach out to those kinds of folks who are doing these studies. There's a group in North Carolina that does quite a bit of work on release mortality and the use of descending devices, and they're constantly working on papers that'll eventually get trickled down to the public for their consumption. But that my first recommendation would be to provide that in a public comment in our online records when we have our council meetings. There's always a public comment form for each council meeting that's available online. It's really simple. You just get in there, plug in your info. If you want the link for that, I'm happy to send it to you during those council meetings so that you can provide your public comment relative to mutton snapper and other species and management issues. But then the next step would certainly be to reach out to folks who might be doing some kind of collaborative and cooperative research. And there might be opportunities for fishermen who are interested in pursuing that kind of research. They might be able to work with universities or state agency folks to get that underway.
Yeah, and the council's very aware of the need for additional research to sort of rope things back around to the best fishing practices amendment. In the appendix of that amendment is a research and monitoring plan that the council put together to recommend to the National Marine Fisheries Service. Like Cameron said, the council itself is not actively involved in research, but the National Marine Fisheries Service is. And there were a couple of goals listed, and one of those goals was the need for more studies on South Atlantic specific species and how descending devices impact them. And so the council is aware that that's something important that needs to be done and have made a formal recommendation to NIMS to try to get some of that research done. So it's a known priority.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, what other amendments are out there that we should be talking about?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Or wait a second. How about something else? You guys also have right now the South Carolina Governor's Cup going on, don't you?
Yes, we do. That's a little outside of my South Atlantic Council role.
Yeah, but you still do some work there because that's where I met you. I met you in Georgetown.
Yeah, it's one of the best things I do for sure. So I've been lucky enough.
This is a fishing show, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm not gonna pigeon
logo on. I'm like,
well, here, put a piece of tape over it. You know, you guys are so funny because you're both wearing the logos. I'm like, wow. And here I am just in a collared shirt.
I mean, you still look nice though, Fly. You look professional. You look like you're ready to talk about no BS. I get it.
This is, listen, it's a full day because I had a meeting this morning and there was a little BS, just a little BS. Not a lot, but a little bit. But when we got on here, there's no BS. And then I got another one later. So the best part is when I have a nice collared shirt on and then I got some orange board shorts and flip-flops. That's when it's really funny. That's when it's really funny. But no, today I got home, pet the dog, and then jumped right on.
Well, good. Well, thanks for letting us, be a part of your day. And we're excited to do this, and we're hopeful that maybe this can lead to other opportunities where we can share information. I mean, there's always something going on at the council office that needs input from fishermen. We'll never get enough input from fishermen. There's no cap on that. So really, there's ample opportunity for us to share what's going on. And when you asked about what amendments are on the table, it's a long list, and we're happy to share whatever people might be interested in other shows and things like that, and come on with other topics that people might want to talk about.
That's the whole purpose of this, is just to give an opportunity to speak with everybody. People have a chance to talk, Wait a second. Hold on. We got a lot. I missed out on some comments here.
Uh-oh.
Whoa.
Oh no.
Stop
Oh
the
no.
presses. I'm gonna only because I'm partial. I gotta go with Tarzan. Tarzan says fly always looks fly. With an orange angle cooler. So
You know what's up, Tarzan.
Tarzan, he's rocking it. Susan Dalton says, how do I know which group manages which species of fish? And you can't hear me this time. I can't, but I can still read your comments.
So that's a really good question. And honestly, there's not really a clear, simple answer to that. With the exception of the South Atlantic Council staff, we've got a staff person, Dr. Chip Collier, who's been working on what's really a web application that allows you to plug in information about species that you might be interested in fishing for, and it pumps out the permit information associated with those species. So that doesn't really apply for private recreational anglers, since in our region there are no permits required for fishing as a private recreational angler. But there are some tools available where you can get information on where you need to go in order to figure out, who manages what. But I think what's less important than the who manages what is kind of getting a general consensus of what the regulations are. And so there's a couple different things that I'm definitely going to plug.
Rules, fish rules, fish rules.
So Christina knows this spiel well, but Fish Rules is a mobile application available to download on your smartphone. And they also have an online presence as well. So they've got a web.
That's Aubrey. Arrington.
Aubrey Arrington. That's right. Aubrey is my boy.
So we're supposed to do the fish ID videos, and we've been given the green light. The problem is now everybody's so busy.
Yeah, it's crazy right now.
It's so amazing. It really is. So soon as everything kind of slows down a little bit, I love the ID videos. I did all the billfish and tuna ones. I want to do the snapper. Aubrey's was kind enough to say he'd help us. We talked to the taxidermy shop. We're gonna work together. It's just we busy.
Yeah.
We busy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of good stuff going on. So let's see. Bruce Marks, if you're still listening, let's get you on the show to talk about Bug Light next week. I would love to get you on to talk about Bug Light. Are you guys familiar with Bug Light?
Are you saying Bud Light like the beer?
Bug with a G.
Oh.
Oh,
okay.
Big difference.
So no. Bug Light was a navigational aid by Key Biscayne. Well, it was the place where we would all go catch bait. It always held bait. Well, the Coast Guard tore it down, but all the rocks are still down there, but they want to rebuild it up. And Bruce Marks out of Miami has been leading the way. And I told him, you let me know, let's get you on here and we can talk about it, because it was one of those, especially for the weekend guys, the guys that do it for a living, they have numbers, they have the place to go to, they know every secret wreck that most people don't know. But Bug Light was just perfect because everybody can go out there and catch bait. So that was so he's trying to bring the superstructure back.
Yeah.
And let's get you back on here, because I like to see. I made a living, or I still make a living doing this. But if it isn't for the weekend guys, the guys that only get out twice a month, those are the people that are out there not day in and day out, but those are the ones that make the majority out of the community. Those are the ones we want to reach out to.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome effort. So
Bruce has done a lot of really cool efforts. So, and anything I can do to help him, I'm happy. I'm always happy. Actually, I'm happy to help anybody that's helping out our fishing community. I'm a sucker for that.
Well, we
wait a
appreciate
second.
you letting us.
No, I love it. When Cameron asked, and actually I was supposed to help create some content about this redeployment stuff, and COVID shut us down. So I was supposed to go fishing with all you guys.
I know.
So
It's gonna be a good time up in Charleston, but hopefully we'll get that up and running again shortly.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
we will. Soon as we open everything back up, and we can travel. Yeah, it's you know what? I'm glad that I set up this little home studio. With you should when we first started, it was a little different. When people send stuff, I just keep adding. I added the blue marlin because I had 50% of the people told me to get rid of the scary clown.
I mean,
there was a clown.
I'm not going to go into the other room and get it, but there was a clown right over here, and it's just a cardboard cutout, and it was a scary clown. And I put my Fly Zone fishing hat on it, and everybody would get nervous, and I would say, well, I keep him up there, so when you look at the two of us together, I look better. So that was the whole purpose. Now I just got to fight for myself. I got people complaining about me today because I got you ladies on here. Wait a second. Hold on. We got a hello from Costa Rica, and Graham Wilkins. Come up to Charleston. Billfish Bite has been good lately.
It sure has. That's right, Graham. It's been real good.
Do you know Graham?
I don't know if I do. That name doesn't ring a bell to me, but it's
Graham, do you know Cameron? Has she measured one of your blue marlins?
I don't do any of the measuring. I just do photography and the social media and the writing. So I'm hands off with the rules.
That's all Amy Dukes, right?
That's all Amy Dukes. That's right. Amy Dukes and Kayla Rudney and Wally Jenkins. They're the boss people for all of that. I just get to do the fun stuff.
I know Wally very well. He was on the HMS with me.
Wally's
and great. And then Amy Dukes I've just known for a long time. So anything I can do to help her out. Sometimes I'll get on the phone. It's very similar to this, except now we're recording it all and blasting it out. We're just talking about fishing and all that kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah, fishing's been good off Charleston. There's bites trickling in, and one of our captains, Grant Bentley, on the home run, which is a 59-foot Spencer, 60-foot Spencer. They went 4 for 6 on blues out of Charleston a couple days ago. So we're pretty happy with that bite. We're hoping it sticks around maybe for some of our later tournaments that are scheduled end of July and August, but fingers crossed, we'll see.
We may, I haven't talked to him in the last week, but I heard one guy going to fish the World Cup out of Hilton Head.
Oh, really? Who's that?
The Miss Magnolia.
Okay. Yep. That's LB, Lawrence Bradham, and then Tram Colquette, I think is.
It's Tram. Tram is the one who called me.
Yeah.
Tram and Bobby.
They're good people. They're a lot of fun, and I hope they catch them up. That'd be nice for Hilton Head to have that kind of
South Carolina exposure. Yeah. Think about that. Get yourself on the globe, not just the map, but the globe.
Yeah, that would be good for us. We could use it. I mean, South Carolina, we've got North Carolina to our north, and they often shadow us with their blue marlin bite, but we've got some good fishing off this coast, so we're excited about it. Good luck to fishing.
I believe your state record is like 880 for blue marlin.
So. Yeah, it was caught aboard the Rascal, which is a boat out of Georgetown, South Carolina. That's the marina that you were at, where I met you. So that's exactly. I believe that's the state record fish is in the high 800 range, and that's stuck for a while. I mean, that was a record that was established years ago. So.
So as you go down all the states, only because I've done the homework, they have grander blue marlin in every state on the East Coast except for Georgia and South Carolina. Now,
change that up.
here's the, and here is the riddle part or the curveball. Florida has a grander marlin, but it wasn't caught on the East Coast. It was caught in the Gulf Coast.
Oh, well, okay. And the Gulf Coast is, yeah.
So no, and again, I'm letting you know that because when I say only Georgia and South Carolina, it's truly not fair because Florida has water on both coasts.
That's true. That's true. I mean, we know that problem well, given the split. Florida is split between the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council and the South Atlantic Fishery Management Council. So folks who are fishing on the west coast of Florida adhere to federal regulations by the Gulf Council, and folks who fish on the east coast of Florida are fishing under the South Atlantic Council's jurisdiction. So Florida is a tough one. I feel for you guys, especially those of you who are in the Keys. You've got some tricky regulations to navigate. And
the councils do their best to work together, though.
Yeah, we do. We
got a couple of fishery management plans that are jointly managed between the two councils, since mackerel in particular, we manage in conjunction with the Gulf Council just to try to keep things from getting too complicated where councils,
I haven't kingfished in a long time other than bycatch, but as a kid, I remember what a nightmare that Gulf stock and the Atlantic stock, because it would move on a certain date. Do they still do that? No, they got rid of.
Actually, right before I started with the council, so back in 2016, 2017, they changed from moving the boundary between the two seasonally to just one firm boundary at the Miami-Dade Monroe County line, and it's there year-round now. So
so
regulations a little less complicated.
Who has the banging in the background? I hear banging.
I don't think it's me. I hear it too, though. But I'm alone in my house, so I hope I don't have that weird.
I'm putting money that it's Susan Dalton trying to get into the show. That's where my money's at.
Yeah,
it's Susan. It's Susan trying to get in. So Tarzan says it's me. Tarzan says it's him. Tarzan, remember, I got another show coming up in 15 minutes, so you got to watch the other one. Oh, BB's laughing. So, is there anything else that you guys want to add into this before we wrap this up? Oh, even Susan jumped in on that one and is laughing.
I'd say I think I've got two things that I want to plug. So one would be, definitely think folks should check out Fish Rules. It's the mobile application that has regulations for state and federal waters. It covers all the way from Maine through the Gulf of Mexico into Texas. So it's got all those regulations, including regulations now that have extended up into state waters for California. I believe Hawaii is working on getting regulations on Fish Rules in that app. So it's really becoming the fishing regulations mobile app for the entire United States. So definitely encourage people to download it. It's free. Check it out and make sure that when you open up the app that you just select where you want information for. So it's going to assume you want state regulations based on your location. You just make sure you're looking at federal regulations. If you need help with it, give me a shout. I'm easy to access through the South Atlantic Council's website. And it's just really
the phone number at the bottom of the screen.
Or the phone number. Yep, my cell number's right there. So give me a shout whenever, anytime. And then, it's key to keep in mind that you can access those regulations without getting cell range. So you can be offshore and still pull up that information as long as you open the app dockside before you head off and make sure that it updates. And then you'll have those regulations readily available to you. And then the last thing I really want to plug is the council has developed a best fishing practices webpage, which features lots of information on these upcoming requirements that are going into effect July 15th that we've discussed today. But it also highlights lots of other best fishing practices, like supporting a fish from the belly if you're taking a grin and grip shot, and making sure that you're not holding it by the gills and you're releasing that fish, and making sure that you know all the signs of barotrauma, and making sure that you're using a dehooking tool when catching snapper and grouper species. And so lots of different best practices are in there, and definitely encourage people to go check them out. And one of the key things that we want to point out is that these best practices are founded in something that has come up earlier in best available science. And so Fish Smart, which is a program that worked really collaboratively with fishermen and state agencies and sea grant organizations and researchers, came up with this solid list of best fishing practices that folks can use when fishing for species in both freshwater and saltwater. So it's definitely a good resource. Go to our website, type in best fishing practices in the search, or go to the site menu and scroll down to best fishing practices, and you'll see lots of information, including videos of fish being released with a descending device and recompressing on the way down, starting to kick and ready to go. And then once the descending device releases them, you see them shoot off into the distance. So lots of cool materials on that webpage for people to go check out and use, and just helpful resources for anglers to rely upon when they're curious about these kinds of things.
Beautiful. I love it. How about from you, Christina?
I just want to harp on the fact that I think, I've said it 2 or 3 times during this podcast. It's important to get involved. And I think this amendment is a really great example of what can happen when managers and fishermen work together. The start of this amendment was from way back years ago when we did snapper visioning and had a bunch of port meetings up and down the coast. And one of the things we heard from fishermen over and over and over again was, we're frustrated. We're releasing these fish because they're out of season, because they're too small, because we've reached our bag limit or for whatever reason, and they're dying. And this is a problem. And they brought solutions like descending devices to us. And this is a snapper grouper amendment. We took this amendment, particularly the definition of descending device, to our snapper grouper advisory panel 2, 3, maybe 4 times during the development to get their input. And that's one of the reasons we have such a functional definition of descending devices. And it's one of the reasons that this amendment has gone forward in a way that will hopefully work well for fishermen. So if you're curious what can happen when fishermen get involved in the management process, I think this amendment is a really good example of what can happen.
Agreed.
Excellent. All right. Well, everybody, again, thank you so much for joining us here in the No BS World Tour. We got a World Cup edition coming up next in about 15, 20 minutes. But I want to say thank you so much to Miss Christina and Miss Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to ask you guys to hold on right here. Don't go nowhere while we sign off. Now, do you know how I sign off? You figured out how I sign in. Do you know how I sign off?
Oh,
I don't think I know this one.
I'm racking my brain. I saw you do it last night with Cujo. What did you do? I don't know. I want to like reference a movie, but I have
what movie? What movie?
I'm thinking of I Love You Man with Paul Rudd, and he's like, it says something like, if I don't see you then, I'll see you another time. And it was like really confusing to set a date. That's the only thing that's coming to mind. You know,
actually, I liked it. I love you, man. You can't have my Bud Light. I don't even know if you guys are old enough to know that commercial. You can't have my Bud Light.
Admittedly, I have no idea what
I don't think so.
So
I knew the Paul Rudd movie.
Yes.
There used to be a commercial where the guy's sitting there fishing, he's drinking a Bud Light, and his buddy sits there, puts his arm around him, says, I love you, man. And he goes, you can't have my Bud Light, and takes it away. He was just telling him, I love you to have his beer. So actually, the way we end it is, to all you cool cats and kittens.
Oh,
no. Carol Baskin.
You were Carol Baskin? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Joe Exotic fan. No, not really. It was just, we all got induced with the whole Tiger King when this thing started.
I watched it. I mean, it It was entertaining television. I'll give you that.
It
All right,
was
It's like a
definitely-
train wreck. Once you start looking, you just can't look
You
away.
can't stop. You can't stop. So,
All right.
alrighty, guys.
Bye.
Everybody, thank you so much. And we will be back with you shortly with a new guest, McGrew Rice from Hawaii, also part of the Westpac Council. We'll probably talk about council stuff. So
Yeah.
you guys may want to watch. So everybody, thank you so much. And we will see you on the flip side.